Time for the moment of truth. Do want to take a peek at these hydrangeas. Now, this is the way that I prefer to buy my hydrangeas, like this, because it's going to last so much longer, especially when I'm buying it for a landscape specimen. I like to buy them where you can just barely start to see your blooms versus when it's all bloomed out. So let me show you the way that I don't like to buy my hydrangeas. This way right here, you see how these hydrangeas, they're all bloomed out. When I'm using hydrangeas for the landscape, I will not buy a hydrangea like this, especially first season. I'm not going to get a hydrangea that's already bloomed out, because look at this, these blooms are already fading. Already fading. Now this way right here, to where you can kind of see the bloom, but for the most part, this specimen right here is not all the way bloomed out. So you have some blooms. That way you can gauge and see what type of hydrangea you're getting. So something like this is fine, but I prefer to get my hydrangeas the other way. I'm even happy with buying my hydrangeas like this, because I mean, it's going to be blooms on here. And then with your endless summer hydrangeas, we know those are rebloomers. They're hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. Morning sun, afternoon shade. I also like to take a peek at the bottom. Anything that's broke off, I just go with another specimen. I look at the leaves, make sure the leaves are healthy. Now these need some air, so that's why they're looking a little bit rough. But this right here is the way that I prefer to buy my hydrangeas, especially when I'm using them in the landscape. I'm going to be underplanting this standard quick fire hydrangea. I'm going to just go in, we're going to put the hydrangeas at the bottom. I almost forgot. I am going to use some Biotone starter fertilizer. Here on the side, we need to fill in more hydrangeas here. So it's looking good on this side. It's pretty full, but we want to focus on this side over here so we can get the same identical look. We're at a pivotal moment here. I do need to run and grab some more hydrangeas out of my hydrangea stash. So let's go. Going to try to find some hydrangeas that are not all the way bloomed out. Like this one right here would be a good option in the blue. This one would be an excellent option right here because we have buds in different stages of blooming here. Let me see. Let's dissect this a little bit more. I mean, if we turn it around, we do have some pretty good coverage. Like they're not all big, but I kind of feel like, I mean, this is a good contender right here, but this is an even better contender because we still have some that's not even really bloomed out yet. Can you see that right there? So this is kind of like the way that I want to go with this one. So let me step back and look at this. Okay, I know which way I'm gonna go. We just need to grab two of these hydrangeas, this one and this one, because it's fuller. Love it. This is our finished look. We have the hydrangeas is draping down here. Now they do need to be watered, but here we are. Once the blooms start coming in, they'll all start to drape. Now look at this in the top, baby. Can y'all see that? Absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. Look at that. That is just amazing. I love it. Now let's water this in real quick. Now I'm just going to get around the bottom. So 3 gallons in this one container right here because I have to accommodate for the tree and then the shrub hydrangeas that's at the bottom. Okay, so I'll just water this in really good and slow. A few things I want to touch on with these hydrangeas. Now, your mop head hydrangeas are going to be water hungry. You want to pay attention to the petals in your mop head hydrangeas because they need to be watered. They are not going to be as vibrant in color as they typically will. So you do see where some of the ones are very vibrant, the color is really showing through, and then other ones it kind of looks more of a pastel, more of a dusky color. That's another cue that you need to go in and you need to water your hydrangeas. Now, whenever you have those strong winds coming up, you want to make sure you go in and later on that night or early the next morning, go ahead and hit your hydrangeas with some waters. The big leaf hydrangeas or the mop heads or the macrophylla hydrangeas, those are kind of like a different ball game than your panicle hydrangeas because they can be a little bit more finicky. But when I tell you hydrangeas are one of the easiest plants, it's all about having the right recipe. Now, one thing I do want to touch on, when we went shopping for the hydrangeas earlier, notice how I showed you all the comparison in how I would get a hydrangea for the landscape and then how I would get a hydrangea if I wanted to have that instant impact. Then by all means, yes, of course, you're going to want to get a hydrangea that's fully bloomed out. Now, one of the things that you have to realize is that with any flowering shrub that reblooms, your first bloom is always going to be your most prolific, is always going to be your most powerful. That's just the breeding of the plant. And in the case of hydrangeas, you'll have your last year's blooms and then you'll have New Year's blooms. And so that first set, they've went and they've cooked up all winter long to present you with this beautiful presentation. And so therefore, your succession of blooms are not going to be as strong and as powerful. But when you're looking for a big leaf hydrangea, try to look for some of those newer varieties that are going to repeat bloom. And you know that your first bloom will be more powerful than your successional blooms. Have this done. I do want to head inside because we have some hydrangea propagations that we need to check on. Time for the moment of truth. Right off the bat, looking at this, I can see one of our hydrangea cuttings did not make it. Before I remove the top, I'm going to show you what the inside of this looks like. This is what we look like before we open it in. Now, I did come yesterday and I opened this all the way up because it was so much condensation on the inside, and I left the other vent closed. So this is what we look like. We'll take the lid off. And you can see that the browning, that's normal. These three look like we may have some contenders. So we'll pull these up and we'll see what the roots look like. I do have my little fork. It makes it easier to pull out your propagations. So this one right here, nothing. It did not take at all. So we know that was a fail. And it really is still early to be checking on these. But we're going to go in this angle here. And I want to see what this one looks like. And so right out the gate, I know that I got roots because you see how it was holding everything together. So yeah, I have roots along the bottom here. Oh yeah, you can see them too. And I am going to put this back in here. You can put all new in there and change the water out, but since it's liking the environment, I'm going to keep it just how it is. Same thing with this one. We have some roots. So same thing, I'm going to put this back in the same environment because it's comfortable in here. I removed the propagation that wasn't doing anything. And we're going to check this one right here. Oh, baby, roots galore. Can you see it? So I am going to show you what a root wash off would look like with this last one because it was actually our most successful. These cuttings were given to me by a friend via a friend, so I'm not sure what variety these are. I just know that they are of the panicle type. So it'll be interesting to see what type they actually are. The lady who gave them to my friend, she was saying that they were a new variety and was just bragging about, like, I'm like, okay, did she come up with this variety on her own? Not sure. But if you're trying to propagate your panicle hydrangeas, you can take softwood or you can take hardwood cuttings. The hardwood cuttings, to me, it's best to take those in the fall time or in the winter when you're doing like your winter containers, and then it'll be easy to get free hydrangeas that way. But you also can take soft cuttings as well. And that is my tried and true method for the panicle form. So we'll just pour. Oh yeah.